The woman kneeling in his meadow wore a dress so faded it might have once been blue, and Nathan Masters had his rifle half raised before he realized she was crying. He lowered the Winchester slowly, studying her from his position near the tree line. She had not heard him approach, too focused on the wildflowers growing in scattered patches across the south pasture of his Montana ranch. Her hands moved gently among the purple lupines and yellow balsam root, not picking them, but doing something else entirely. Planting, he realized. She was planting more wildflowers. Nathan cleared his throat, and the woman spun around so fast she nearly toppled over. Her face was young, maybe 22 or 23, with eyes the color of creek water after spring rain. Those eyes were red-rimmed and frightened as they fixed on him, then on the rifle in his hands. "I am sorry," she said, her voice shaking as she scrambled to her feet. Dirt streaked her hands and knees. "I did not mean any harm. I will leave. Hold on." Nathan kept his voice calm, the same tone he used with spooked horses. "This is my land. Mind telling me what you are doing here?" She swallowed hard, clutching a small cloth sack against her chest. "Seeds," he guessed. "I was planting flowers." "I know I should not have, but I thought," her voice caught. "It does not matter what I thought. I will go." She started to move past him, but Nathan stepped sideways, blocking her path without getting too close. "You are not in trouble, miss. I am just curious why anyone would trespass on a stranger's property to plant wildflowers." The woman looked up at him, and he saw the moment she decided whether to trust him. Her shoulders, which had been hunched with tension, dropped slightly. "My name is Beatrice Lawson. I arrived in Red River 3 weeks ago. I am staying with my aunt at the boarding house." Nathan Masters. He touched the brim of his hat. "This is my ranch, the Double M, but you still have not answered my question." Beatrice looked down at the flowers and fresh tears spilled onto her cheeks. "I am sorry. It is foolish. I should not bother you with it." Nathan felt something twist in his chest at the sight of those tears. He had always been uncomfortable around crying women, never knowing what to say or do. His mother had died when he was young, and he had spent the last 15 years running this ranch alone. But something about this woman made him want to understand. "Why do not you tell me anyway?" he said, softer now. "I have got time." She studied his face for a long moment, then nodded. "My sister died 6 months ago. Consumption. She was only 19. The words came out flat, as though she had said them so many times they had lost their shape. "She loved wildflowers. She used to say they were proof that beautiful things could grow anywhere, even in harsh places. When I came here to Montana to start over, I thought I would plant flowers in her memory, everywhere I could, so she would be remembered." Nathan felt the weight of her grief settle between them. He had lost people too. His father to a riding accident, his younger brother to fever. He knew what it was like to carry that hollow ache. "I am sorry about your sister," he said. "What was her name?" "Sarah." Beatrice smiled, small and sad. "She would have loved it here, all this open space, the mountains in the distance. She always wanted to see Montana." Nathan looked at the flowers she had planted, a small cluster of purple and yellow among the native blooms. "You know anything about wildflowers? About what grows well here?" Beatrice nodded. "I have been reading about it. The librarian in Red River let me borrow some books on native plants. I try to only plant varieties that belong here, that will not crowd out what is already growing." "That is smart," Nathan said. He made a decision then, one that surprised him even as he spoke. "Listen, Miss Lawson, I have got about 500 acres here and most of it is just open range. If you want to plant your flowers somewhere they will actually survive, I can show you the spots that get good water and sun." Her eyes widened. "You would let me do that, even though I was trespassing?" "You are not doing any harm," Nathan said. and it sounds like you are doing it for good reasons. Besides, my mother used to keep a flower garden near the house. After she passed, it all went wild. Maybe it is time this place had some beauty again." Beatrice stared at him like he had offered her the moon. "I do not know what to say." "Thank you, Mr. Masters. Nathan is fine," he said, "and you are welcome. But next time maybe knock on the door first. Nearly gave me a heart attack thinking I had claimed jumpers or cattle thieves." She laughed, a small sound but genuine. "I promise. I will knock first." They stood there for a moment, the late afternoon sun turning the grassland golden around them. Nathan felt something shift in his chest, a crack in the walls he had built around himself over the years. This woman, with her sad eyes and dirt-stained dress, had wandered onto his land and somehow made him feel less alone. "I should get back to town before dark," Beatrice said. "My aunt will worry." "How did you get out here?" "I walked." Nathan frowned. "That is near 7 miles. "You walked 14 miles to plant flowers." She lifted her chin. "I did not mind." "Well, I mind letting you walk back. My horse can carry double and it will be dark soon. Let me take you home." Beatrice looked uncertain. "I do not want to be a burden." "You are not," Nathan said firmly. "Come on. My horse is just over the ridge." They walked together through the tall grass, and Nathan found himself stealing glances at her. She moved carefully, watching where she stepped, occasionally stopping to look at a particular flower or plant. There was something gentle about her, something that drew him in despite his usual wariness around strangers. His horse, a big bay gelding named Rusty, stood ground-tied where Nathan had left him. The horse raised his head as they approached, ears pricked forward with interest. "He is beautiful," Beatrice said. "And he knows it," Nathan replied, patting Rusty's neck. "Spoiled rotten, this one." He mounted first, then reached down to help Beatrice up. Her hand was small in his, calloused from work but gentle. She settled behind him, perching sideways on Rusty's broad back, and Nathan tried to ignore the way his pulse jumped at her nearness. They rode in silence for a while, following the dirt road that led toward Red River. The town sat in a valley between 2 ranges of mountains, the Clark Fork River running through it like a silver ribbon. It had been established back in 1864 during the gold rush days, though most of the easily accessible gold was long gone. Now it survived on ranching, timber, and the railroad that had come through 5 years ago in 1878. "How long have you owned your ranch?" Beatrice asked, her voice soft near his ear. 15 years, more or less. My father started it back in 1865 after the war. He came west looking for a fresh start. When he died, I inherited it. I was 18. That is young to take on so much responsibility. Did not have much choice, Nathan said. My brother was only 12. Someone had to keep things running. Where is your brother now? Nathan felt the familiar ache. He died of fever when he was 16. It was just me after that. I am sorry, Beatrice said. It must have been hard losing everyone. It was, Nathan admitted. He never talked about this with anyone, but somehow it felt natural with her. For a long time I just worked. From sunrise to past dark every day. If I stayed busy enough, I did not have time to think about being alone. I understand that, Beatrice said quietly. After Sarah died, I thought I would go mad from the grief. My aunt in Red River offered me a place to stay, suggested a change of scenery might help. So I left Nebraska and came here. I have been working at the general store, helping with the books and inventory. Do you like it here? I do, she said. It is beautiful. Wild but beautiful. And planting the flowers helps. It feels like I am doing something to honor Sarah, to make sure she is not forgotten. They reached the edge of town as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Red River was a modest place, with a main street lined with false-fronted buildings. The general store, the saloon, the bank, a hotel, the boarding house. Nathan knew every building, every face. It was home, even if it was sometimes lonely. He stopped Rusty in front of the boarding house, a two-story structure with a wide porch. Beatrice slid down from the horse and Nathan followed, wanting to see her safely inside. "Thank you for the ride," Beatrice said, "and for being so kind about the flowers." "You are welcome," Nathan said. "And I meant what I said. You are welcome on my land anytime. Just let me know when you want to plant more. I can show you around properly." Her smile was like sunrise. "I would like that very much." An older woman appeared on the porch, wiping her hands on her apron. "Beatrice, is everything all right?" "Yes, Aunt Margaret. This is Mr. Masters. Nathan, this is my Aunt Margaret Lawson." Nathan tipped his hat. "Madam, I found your niece on my property planting wildflowers. I gave her a ride back to town." Margaret looked between them, her sharp eyes assessing. "That was kind of you, Mr. Masters. Beatrice, come inside and wash up for supper." "Yes, madam." Beatrice turned back to Nathan. "Thank you again." "Anytime, Miss Lawson." He watched her go inside, then mounted Rusty and headed back toward his ranch. The sun had fully set by the time he reached home, the stars beginning to emerge in the darkening sky. He settled Rusty in the barn, gave him a good rub-down and some oats, then walked to the house. It was a simple structure, built from logs with a stone chimney. 2 bedrooms, a main room that served as both kitchen and living space, and a small porch where his mother used to sit in the evenings. Nathan lit a lamp and made himself some supper, beans and salt pork, eating alone at the rough wooden table. But for the first time in years, the silence did not feel quite so heavy. He found himself thinking about Beatrice, about her tears and her courage, about the way she had looked at the wildflowers like they were something precious. He thought about her sister, dead at 19, and about how Beatrice was trying to keep her memory alive in the only way she knew how. Nathan lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling beams and wondering when she would come back, if she would come back. He told himself it did not matter, that he was just being neighborly, but he knew that was a lie. Something had shifted today, something important, and he could not quite put it back the way it was. The next morning dawned clear and warm, perfect weather for the work that needed doing. Nathan spent the day mending fence line on the north pasture, hot and sweaty work that usually kept his mind occupied. But today, his thoughts kept drifting to a woman with sad eyes and gentle hands. 3 days passed before he saw her again. He was working near the barn when he spotted a figure walking up the road toward his property. Even from a distance, he recognized her. Beatrice carried a larger sack this time, and she wore a different dress, this one a faded green. She walked with purpose, her head up, and Nathan felt his heart kick harder in his chest. He met her halfway, wiping the sweat from his brow. "Miss Lawson, I was starting to think you might not come back." "I had to work," she explained. "Mr. Patterson at the general store needed help with inventory, but I have today off and I brought more seeds." She held up the sack. "Columbine and Indian paintbrush. They both grow well here according to the books." "They do," Nathan confirmed. "My mother had both in her garden." "Come on, I will show you some good spots." They spent the afternoon together, Nathan pointing out areas with good drainage and sun exposure, Beatrice kneeling to plant seeds with careful precision. She told him about her work at the store, about the customers and the gossip of the town. He found himself talking too, more than he had talked to anyone in years, telling her about the ranch and the cattle and the hard winters. As the sun began to dip toward the mountains, they walked back toward the house. Nathan found himself not wanting the day to end. "Would you like some water?" he offered, "or I could make coffee." "Water would be lovely, thank you." He drew cool water from the well and they sat on the porch steps, passing the ladle back and forth. Beatrice looked out at the land, her expression peaceful. "It is beautiful here," she said. "I can see why you love it." "It is all I have ever known," Nathan said. "Sometimes I wonder what it would be like to see other places, but then I think I would miss this too much." "I have only lived in two places," Beatrice said. "Nebraska and here. Montana is better." "Why?" She was quiet for a moment. "Nebraska reminds me of Sarah. Everywhere I looked, I saw her. The house we grew up in, the church where we attended service, the cemetery where she is buried. It was too much. Here I can breathe. I can remember her without drowning in it." Nathan understood. "After my brother died, I almost sold the ranch. Everything reminded me of him, of plans we had made that would never happen. But I realized running away would not fix anything, so I stayed." "Are you glad you did?" "Yes," he said, and realized he meant it. "This is home, for better or worse." Beatrice looked at him, really looked at him, and Nathan felt exposed under her gaze. "I think you are very brave, Nathan Masters, building a life out here all alone, making something from nothing." "I do not feel brave," he admitted. "Most days I just feel tired." "That is what bravery is," she said softly. "Doing what needs to be done even when you are tired, even when it hurts." They sat in comfortable silence as the shadows lengthened. Nathan knew he should offer to take her home, that it was getting late, but he did not want to. He wanted to sit here on this porch with this woman who understood grief and loneliness, who planted flowers in memory of her sister, who looked at him like he was worth knowing. "I should go," Beatrice finally said, though she sounded reluctant. "Let me saddle Rusty." "You do not have to." "I do not mind walking." "I do not mind riding," Nathan countered. "Besides, it is too far and too late. Your aunt would have my hide if I let you walk home in the dark." Beatrice laughed. "She probably would." They rode together again, Beatrice seated behind him, and Nathan thought this might be his new favorite thing, having her near, feeling her presence warm against his back. They talked the whole way about everything and nothing, and by the time they reached Red River, Nathan knew he was in trouble. He was falling for her, for this woman who had wandered onto his property 3 days ago with tears on her face and wildflower seeds in her pocket. It was too fast, too sudden, but it felt as natural as breathing. "When can you come back?" he asked as she slid down from Rusty. "Sunday, after church. I will be waiting." She smiled up at him, and Nathan thought he would wait forever if she kept smiling at him like that. The pattern repeated through the next 2 weeks. Beatrice would come to the ranch on her days off, and they would walk the property together, planting flowers and talking. Nathan learned that she loved books but had never had many growing up, that she could sew and cook, but hated laundry, that she had always wanted to learn to ride a horse properly, but had never had the chance. He learned that she hummed while she worked, old hymns and folk songs, and that she laughed easily when she was comfortable. He learned that she was stronger than she looked, that grief had not broken her, but had somehow made her more capable of joy when she found it. And he learned that he was completely, helplessly in love with her. It was Sunday afternoon, nearly a month after they first met, when Nathan finally gathered the courage to say something. They were sitting by a small creek that ran through the eastern part of his property, watching the water flow over smooth stones. Beatrice had just finished planting a cluster of wild roses near the bank. "Beatrice," he said, his voice rough, "I need to tell you something." She looked at him, her expression curious. "What is it?" "These past few weeks, getting to know you, spending time with you." He stopped, searching for the right words. "It has meant more to me than I can say. You have brought something into my life that I did not even know was missing." Her eyes widened. "Nathan." "I am not good with words," he continued, "and I do not have much to offer beyond hard work in this ranch, but I care about you, Beatrice. more than I probably should after such a short time. And if you feel even a fraction of what I feel, then I would be honored if you would let me court you properly." Beatrice was quiet for so long that Nathan felt his heart sink. He had misread this, he had moved too fast, he had ruined everything. Then she reached out and took his hand, her fingers threading through his. "I feel it too," she whispered. "I have been afraid to say anything, afraid I was being foolish, but yes, I would like that very much." Relief washed through him so strongly he felt dizzy. "Really, really." She squeezed his hand. "You are not what I expected, Nathan Masters. When I came here to plant flowers, I did not think I would find anything else. But you have been so kind, so patient. You have given me a place to grieve and a reason to hope. I care about you too." Nathan lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to her knuckles. "I promise I will do right by you." "I know you will," she said. They sat there by the creek until the sun began to set, hands clasped together, talking about the future in careful, hopeful tones. Nathan felt lighter than he had in years, as though some heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. When he took her home that evening, he helped her down from Rusty and walked her to the porch. Margaret was there, watching them with knowing eyes. "Mr. Masters," she said. "Would you like to stay for supper?" Nathan glanced at Beatrice, who nodded encouragingly. "I would be honored, madam." The meal was simple but good, chicken and vegetables, fresh bread and butter. Margaret asked Nathan questions about the ranch, about his family, about his prospects. He answered honestly, hiding nothing, and by the end of the evening he felt he had passed some kind of test. As he prepared to leave, Margaret pulled him aside. "My niece has been through a lot," she said quietly. "Losing Sarah nearly destroyed her. She came here broken, and she has been working hard to heal. If you hurt her, Mr. Masters, you will answer to me." "I have no intention of hurting her, madam," Nathan said firmly. "I intend to do everything in my power to make her happy." Margaret studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "I believe you, and I can see she cares for you. Just remember what I said." "I will, madam." The courtship progressed steadily through the summer. Nathan came to town when he could, taking Beatrice on walks along the river or to church socials. She continued to visit the ranch, and Nathan taught her to ride Rusty, laughing as she clung to the saddle horn with determination. The wildflowers began to bloom, scattered across his property in bursts of color. Purple and yellow, red and white, they transformed the landscape into something magical. Every time Nathan saw them, he thought of Beatrice, of her love for her sister and her determination to create beauty from grief. One evening in late August, as they sat on his porch watching the sunset, Nathan pulled a small box from his pocket. "I have something for you." Beatrice took the box, her eyes questioning. Inside was a simple ring, a thin gold band with a small garnet stone. It had been his mother's. "Beatrice Lawson," Nathan said, sliding off the porch step to kneel in front of her. "I love you. I love your kindness and your courage and the way you see beauty everywhere you look. I love how you have brought life and light into my world. Will you marry me? Will you make this ranch our home?" Tears streamed down her face as she nodded. "Yes, yes, Nathan, I will marry you." He slid the ring onto her finger and it fit perfectly, as though it had been made for her. Then he kissed her, soft and sweet, and felt the last pieces of his broken heart snap back into place. They were married in September, in the small church in Red River. Margaret cried through the ceremony, and half the town turned out to witness the union. Nathan wore his best suit, and Beatrice wore a dress of pale blue that Margaret had sewn for her. She carried a bouquet of wildflowers, of course, picked from the meadows on the ranch. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Nathan kissed his bride and felt like the luckiest man alive. They made their home on the ranch, and Beatrice transformed it. She sewed curtains for the windows, planted a proper garden near the house, filled the shelves with books she borrowed from the library. She cooked meals that were far better than anything Nathan had made for himself, and she sang while she worked, filling the house with music and light. But more than that, she filled his days with joy. They worked together, side by side, tending the cattle and the land. Beatrice learned quickly, becoming a skilled ranch hand in her own right. She could mend fence, doctor a sick calf, and ride a horse almost as well as Nathan. At night, they lay in bed and talked about their dreams. Nathan wanted to expand the herd, maybe build a bigger barn. Beatrice wanted to create a proper wildflower meadow, a place where people could come and remember their loved ones by planting flowers. They talked about children, about the family they hoped to build together. Winter came early that year, snow falling in late October and not letting up until April. It was a hard winter, the hardest Nathan had faced in years, but having Beatrice by his side made all the difference. They huddled by the fire on the coldest nights, reading aloud to each other or playing cards. They checked on the cattle together, breaking ice on the water troughs and hauling hay through the snow. One particularly brutal night, they lost 3 calves to the cold despite their best efforts. Nathan felt the failure keenly, but Beatrice held him and reminded him that they had saved dozens more, that they had done their best. "You cannot control the weather," she said gently. "You can only do what you can do." "I know," he said, "but it still hurts." "Of course it does." "That is because you care. But we will get through this, Nathan, together." And they did. Spring came eventually, bringing with it green grass and warm sunshine. The wildflowers Beatrice had planted the year before came back in full force, spreading and multiplying. The meadow was a riot of color, and travelers on the road would sometimes stop to admire it. Beatrice got the idea to invite people to plant flowers in memory of their loved ones. She put up a sign at the edge of the meadow, and word spread. People came from Red River and from neighboring ranches, bringing seeds and plants and stories of those they had lost. Nathan would watch from the porch as his wife moved among the visitors, offering comfort and support, helping them choose the right spots for their flowers. She had turned her grief into something beautiful, something that helped others heal too. In May, Beatrice told him she was expecting a child. Nathan felt his knees go weak. "Really? You are certain?" "Very certain," she said, laughing at his expression. "You are going to be a father, Nathan." He picked her up and spun her around, whooping with joy. Then he set her down carefully, afraid he might have hurt her. "Are you all right? Should you be resting?" "I am fine," she assured him. "Perfectly healthy. The baby should come in December." They spent that summer preparing. Nathan built a cradle from pine wood, sanding it smooth and carving small flowers into the headboard. Beatrice sewed tiny clothes and blankets. Margaret came out regularly to check on her niece, bringing advice and supplies. The wildflower meadow thrived, visited by butterflies and bees. People continued to come and plant, until the meadow stretched across several acres, a living memorial to all the people who had been loved and lost. In late November, as the first snows began to fall, Beatrice went into labor. Margaret was there, and she sent Nathan to fetch the doctor from Red River. He rode Rusty harder than he ever had, racing through the dark, and the doctor barely had time to grab his bag before Nathan was hauling him back to the ranch. The labor was long and difficult. Nathan paced outside the bedroom, helpless and terrified, listening to Beatrice's cries. He prayed harder than he had ever prayed in his life, begging God to keep her safe, to keep the baby safe. Finally, just after dawn, he heard a thin wail. The door opened and Margaret emerged, tired but smiling. "You have a son, Nathan, a healthy baby boy, and Beatrice is doing well." Nathan rushed into the room. Beatrice lay in bed, exhausted but glowing, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in a blue blanket. She looked up at him with tired eyes. "Meet your son," she whispered. Nathan knelt beside the bed, looking down at the impossibly small face peeking out from the blanket. The baby had a shock of dark hair and tiny, perfect features. He was the most beautiful thing Nathan had ever seen. "He is perfect," Nathan breathed. "You are amazing. We should name him," Beatrice said. "I was thinking maybe Samuel after your brother." Nathan felt tears prick his eyes. "You would do that. Your brother was important to you. I want our son to carry on his name." "Samuel Masters," Nathan said, testing it out. "It is perfect." They were a family now, the three of them. Nathan threw himself into fatherhood with the same intensity he brought to everything else. He changed diapers and walked the floor at night when Samuel was fussy. He sang off-key lullabies and made faces to coax smiles from his son. Beatrice recovered quickly, and by spring she was back to her usual activities, though now with a baby on her hip. Samuel was a happy child, quick to smile and curious about everything. He loved being outside, watching the sky and the grass and the flowers. The years passed in a blur of joy and hard work. Samuel grew into a bright, energetic boy who loved the ranch and the animals. When he was 3, Beatrice told Nathan they were expecting another child. Their daughter was born in the summer of 1885, a tiny girl with her mother's eyes and a temper to match. They named her Sarah, after Beatrice's sister, and Nathan thought his heart might burst from how much he loved his family. Sarah was different from Samuel, quieter and more thoughtful. She would sit for hours in the wildflower meadow, watching the butterflies and arranging flowers into patterns. Beatrice said she was just like her namesake, and Nathan could see the resemblance in old photographs Margaret had brought from Nebraska. The ranch prospered. Nathan expanded the herd and built the bigger barn he had always wanted. He hired a couple of ranch hands to help with the work, good men who treated his family with respect. The wildflower meadow became famous throughout the region, a place of peace and remembrance. Beatrice worked with the church to create a memorial registry, recording the names of those honored by flowers in the meadow. She wrote to families who had moved away, telling them how their flowers were thriving. She became a pillar of the community, known for her kindness and her willingness to help anyone in need. Nathan could hardly remember what his life had been like before her. The loneliness, the endless work with no purpose beyond survival. She had transformed everything, not just the ranch but him. He was a better man because of her, more patient, more open, more willing to love. One evening when Samuel was 10 and Sarah was 7, they all sat on the porch together watching the sunset. The children were playing a game with stones, laughing and arguing in the way siblings do. Beatrice leaned against Nathan's shoulder, her hand in his. "I never thanked you properly," she said quietly. "For what? For finding me that day. For not sending me away when I was trespassing on your land." Nathan kissed the top of her head. "I think you found me actually. And I will be grateful for the rest of my life that you did. Do you remember what you said to me? That first day, I offered to show you the good spots for planting. You said your mother used to have a flower garden, and maybe it was time this place had some beauty again." Beatrice looked up at him, her eyes shining. "You gave me a place to heal, Nathan, a place to honor Sarah and to start building a new life. You gave me everything." "You gave me everything," Nathan corrected. "I was just existing before you came along. You taught me how to live again." They kissed, sweet and familiar, while their children made gagging noises and laughed. Nathan chuckled against Beatrice's lips, then pulled back to tickle Sarah, who shrieked with delight. These were the moments he treasured. Not the big achievements or successes, but the simple joy of being together, of having people to love who loved him back. As the children grew older, they took on more responsibilities around the ranch. Samuel proved to have a gift with horses, gentle and patient like his father. Sarah inherited her mother's way with growing things, and by the time she was 12, she had taken over much of the care of the Wildflower meadow. In 1892, when Samuel was 17 and Sarah 14, Nathan sat his son down for a serious talk. "This ranch will be yours someday," he said. "If you want it, but I need to know that it is what you truly want, not just what you think I expect." Samuel looked surprised. "Of course I want it, Pa. I cannot imagine doing anything else." "You could," Nathan said. "You are smart enough for college, or you could learn a trade. I want you to choose your life, not feel trapped by it." "I am not trapped," Samuel said firmly. "I love this place. I love the work. And I love knowing that you and Ma built this from nothing, that you made it into something special. I want to carry that on." Nathan felt pride swell in his chest. "Then I will teach you everything I know, and when the time comes, you will be ready." They shook hands man to man, and Nathan knew his legacy was secure. Sarah, meanwhile, announced at 15 that she wanted to study botany. "I want to understand plants, how they grow and why," she explained. "I want to make the meadow even better, bring in new varieties that will thrive here." Nathan and Beatrice discussed it, then found a way to send her to study with a botanist in Missoula for a year. It was hard letting her go, but they knew it was important. She came back full of knowledge and ideas, and the meadow flourished under her expert care. The turn of the century came, bringing with it new technologies and changes. The telephone lines reached Red River, and automobiles began appearing on the roads, though Nathan never quite trusted them. He preferred horses. "Thank you very much." Samuel married a local girl named Emma when he was 22, a sweet young woman who fit seamlessly into the family. They built a house on the eastern part of the ranch, and before long, Nathan and Beatrice were grandparents to a squalling baby boy they named Daniel. Sarah married a few years later to a surveyor named Thomas who had come to Montana for work and fallen in love with both the land and the rancher's daughter. They settled in Red River, where Sarah opened a small nursery, selling native plants and flowers to people across the state. Nathan and Beatrice grew older together, their hair turning silver, their hands becoming gnarled with age. But their love never diminished. If anything, it grew stronger, deepened by decades of shared experiences and memories. They still sat on the porch in the evenings, still walked through the wildflower meadow holding hands. Nathan would sometimes stop and pull his wife close, kissing her like they were young again, and Beatrice would laugh and tell him he was incorrigible. "I am a man in love with his wife," Nathan would reply. "Nothing wrong with that." One spring evening in 1908, when Nathan was 63 and Beatrice 62, they walked through the meadow together. It was spectacular, a sea of color stretching as far as the eye could see. Purple lupines and yellow balsamroot, red Indian paintbrush and white columbine, wild roses and countless other varieties. "Remember when you first planted flowers here?" Nathan asked. "It was just a few small clusters." "I remember," Beatrice said. "I remember being so sad, so lost. And then you found me. Best day of my life, mine too." They stood together in the twilight, surrounded by beauty they had created together. The flowers swayed in the breeze, alive and vibrant, a testament to love and loss and the power of remembering. "You think Sarah would be proud?" Beatrice asked softly. "My sister, I mean. Do you think she would like what we have done here?" "I think she would be amazed," Nathan said. "And grateful. You have kept her memory alive in the most beautiful way possible." Beatrice leaned her head on his shoulder. "I could not have done it without you. You gave me the space to heal, the freedom to grieve in my own way. You loved me even when I was broken." "You were never broken," Nathan said firmly. "You were grieving. There is a difference. And I loved you from the moment I saw you kneeling in my meadow with tears on your face. I have never stopped." "I love you too," Beatrice whispered. "More than words can say." They walked back to the house as darkness fell, their steps slower than they used to be, but still steady. Inside, the lamp was lit, and the warmth of home surrounded them. Nathan banked the fire while Beatrice made tea, the evening routine as familiar as breathing. Later, lying in bed with Beatrice curled against his side, Nathan thought about his life. All the hardship and loss, all the work and worry, had been worth it, because it had led him here to this moment with this woman. She had wandered onto his property 43 years ago to plant wildflowers, and she had ended up planting roots so deep nothing could ever tear them out. He had found her tending wildflowers on his property, and this cowboy had realized she had already planted roots. Roots that went deep into the soil of his land and deeper still into his heart. Roots that had grown into a life, a family, a legacy of love and remembrance. The years continued to pass gently. Nathan and Beatrice celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary in 1913, surrounded by children and grandchildren. Samuel and Emma had 4 children now, all growing up on the ranch. Sarah and Thomas had 3, and they visited often, filling the house with laughter and chaos. Nathan was 74 now, his body feeling the effects of decades of hard work. His back ached in the mornings and his hands were stiff. But he still got up every day, still walked through the meadow with Beatrice, still found joy in the simple act of living. One morning, in late summer of 1915, Nathan woke to find Beatrice already up and dressed. She stood by the window, looking out at the meadow, her white hair catching the early morning light. "Come back to bed," Nathan said. "It is too early to be up." "I wanted to watch the sunrise," she replied. "The flowers look so beautiful in this light." Nathan got up and joined her at the window, wrapping his arms around her from behind. Together they watched as the sun rose over the mountains, painting the meadow in shades of gold and pink. "You ever regret it?" he asked. "Staying here, building this life?" "Sometimes I wonder if you would have been happier somewhere else, with more excitement and opportunities." Beatrice turned in his arms, looking up at him with fierce love in her eyes. "I have never regretted a single moment, Nathan Masters. This life, this place, it is everything I never knew I needed. You saved me when I did not even know I needed saving." "We saved each other," Nathan said. "Yes," she agreed. "We did." They kissed slow and sweet, a kiss that held 50 years of love and devotion. Outside, the wildflowers swayed in the morning breeze, and somewhere a bird began to sing. Nathan Masters had lived a long, full life. He had faced hardship and loss, had worked himself to the bone building something from nothing. But his greatest achievement was not the ranch or the cattle or the land. It was this woman, this love, this life they had built together. And as they stood there in the morning light, surrounded by the beauty she had created and the love they had nurtured, Nathan knew with absolute certainty that he was the luckiest man who had ever lived. Years later, when Nathan was 83 and Beatrice 82, they sat together on the porch one last time. It was spring, and the meadow was in full bloom, more magnificent than ever. Sarah had expanded it even further, and people came from all over Montana to see it, to plant their own flowers, to remember their own loved ones. Nathan held Beatrice's hand, their fingers intertwined as they had been for so many years. They did not need to speak. Everything that needed to be said had been said 1,000 times over. Samuel came out with glasses of cool water. He was 51 now, with gray in his hair and grandchildren of his own. He had run the ranch for the past decade, and he ran it well, with the same dedication and love his father had shown. "You two need anything?" he asked. "We are fine, son," Nathan said. "Just enjoying the view." Samuel smiled, understanding. He had grown up watching his parents' love story unfold, had seen the way they cherished each other through good times and bad. It had set the standard for his own marriage, and he hoped his children would be as fortunate. After Samuel went back inside, Beatrice squeezed Nathan's hand. "We did good, did we not?" "We did amazing," Nathan said. "Look at what we built. Not just the ranch, but the family, the legacy. Those flowers out there, they represent hundreds of people, hundreds of stories of love and loss. You did that. You created a place where people could heal." "We created it," Beatrice corrected. "You gave me the space to do it. You believed in me when I was just a grieving woman trespassing on your land." Nathan chuckled. "Best trespasser I ever met." They sat in comfortable silence as the afternoon wore on. The sun was setting when Beatrice spoke again, her voice soft. "I am tired, Nathan." He knew what she meant. Not just physically tired, though they both were, but tired in the soul, ready to rest after a long, full life. "I know, love, I am too." "Will you miss it? This life, this world?" Nathan looked at the meadow, at the mountains beyond, at the ranch that had been his whole world. "I will miss some things, but I have no regrets. We had more than most people ever get. We had true love." "We did," Beatrice agreed. "We do." "I want you to know," Nathan said, his voice rough with emotion, "that you were the best thing that ever happened to me. The absolute best. I loved you from that first day, and I will love you beyond my last." Tears rolled down Beatrice's cheeks. "And you were my salvation, Nathan Masters. You gave me a reason to live again when I thought I never would. You and this place, these flowers, our family. It has been the greatest joy of my life." They sat together as the stars came out, holding hands, watching the sky. And if Nathan held her hand a little tighter, if Beatrice leaned a little more heavily on his shoulder, neither of them mentioned it. Nathan passed peacefully in his sleep 2 weeks later, Beatrice beside him, their hands still clasped together. He was 83 years old and had lived every day to the fullest. Beatrice followed him 3 months later, on a sunny morning in June. She had spent those months in the meadow, tending the flowers one last time, making sure everything was in order. When Sarah found her, she was lying peacefully among the wildflowers, a slight smile on her face, as though she had simply decided it was time to join the man she loved. They were buried together on a hill overlooking the meadow, under a simple stone that read, "Nathan and Beatrice Masters." They planted roots and grew love. The ranch stayed in the family. Samuel ran it until his own son was ready to take over, and then that son passed it to his children. The wildflower meadow became a protected space, maintained by the family but open to all. People continued to come, year after year, to plant flowers and remember. The story of Nathan and Beatrice became local legend. The cowboy who found a woman planting wildflowers on his property. The woman who had been grieving her sister and found love instead. The couple who turned a simple ranch in Montana into a place of beauty and healing. Every spring, when the wildflowers bloomed in profusion across the meadow, people would remember. They would tell their children the story of the trespassing woman and the lonely cowboy, of how love could grow in the most unexpected places, of how grief could be transformed into beauty. And standing in that meadow, surrounded by purple and yellow and red and white, by flowers that had been planted by hundreds of hands over dozens of years, it was impossible not to believe in the power of love. Impossible not to see that Nathan and Beatrice Masters had created something eternal, something that would outlast stone and steel and even memory itself. They had planted roots, both of them, roots that went deep into the Montana soil. And from those roots had grown something magnificent. A family, a legacy, a place where beauty and love could flourish despite hardship and loss. The wildflowers still bloom there in that meadow in Montana. They bloom every spring without fail, a riot of color against the green grass and blue sky. And if you visit on a quiet evening when the wind is just right, you might almost hear it. The sound of a woman humming as she tends her flowers, and the low voice of a man who loved her, speaking softly about the beauty she had brought into his world. They found each other in that meadow, Nathan and Beatrice. He found her tending wildflowers on his property, this cowboy who had lived alone for so long. And she found him, this woman who had been drowning in grief and searching for a way to honor her sister. They found each other, and they planted roots so deep that nothing could ever tear them out. And that, in the end, is the greatest love story of all. Not the dramatic gestures or passionate declarations, though there were plenty of those, but the simple, profound act of choosing each other, day after day, year after year, of building a life together, of weathering storms and celebrating joys, of growing old with hands clasped and hearts entwined. The meadow still stands as testament to their love. Every flower a memory, every bloom a promise. That love endures. That beauty can grow from grief. That sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected meetings. Nathan found Beatrice tending wildflowers on his property, and this cowboy realized she had already planted roots. Roots in his land, roots in his heart, roots in his soul. And from those roots grew a love that lasted a lifetime and beyond. A love that still blooms every spring in a meadow in Montana, where the wildflowers grow thick and beautiful, and two souls rest together on a hillside, their story told and retold by everyone who visits that magical place. That is how it ended and how it continues, because love like that never truly ends. It just transforms, becomes part of the land and the sky and the flowers that bloom year after year. Nathan and Beatrice Masters lived and loved and died, but what they built together remains. In the ranch that still operates, in the children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren who carry their names and their values. In the meadow where people still come to plant flowers and heal their grief. They planted roots, those two. And from those roots grew something beautiful, something lasting, something that will endure as long as the wildflowers bloom in Montana. As long as there are people who believe in love, who believe that beauty can grow anywhere, even in harsh places, even in broken hearts. That is the story of Nathan Masters and Beatrice Lawson Masters, the cowboy and the woman who trespassed on his land to plant wildflowers, the couple who built a life and a legacy from nothing but hard work and devotion and love so deep it changed the very landscape around them. And if you ever find yourself in Montana, driving through the valley near Red River, look for the meadow. You will know it when you see it, this impossible expanse of wildflowers in every color imaginable. Stop and walk among them. Read the names in the memorial registry. Plant a flower of your own if you have someone to remember, and know that you are standing in a place made sacred by love, tended by generations of a family that understood what really matters in this world. Not wealth or fame or power, but love. Simple, profound, enduring love. Nathan found Beatrice tending wildflowers on his property, and he realized she had already planted roots, and that made all the difference.